Hi everyone. I hope everyone had fun with their last projects. I want to remind you that the best way of submitting your project is by taking a photo of it, emailing it to yourself from your phone, okay? Download that picture to your computer and then upload it to Buzz. Some people have been able to do this right from their phones. Picture, picture on their camera, move over to Buzz and upload the picture from there so that I can grade it. I need to see it in Buzz or we can make arrangements. If you have trouble, please send me an email and let me know what challenges you're having. Also, every project is going to have a reflection or some questions. If you are engaged in the project and if you're paying attention to all the lessons of the project, you should be able to answer those 10 questions, no problem. So, to be honest with you, there are hundreds of videos on make drawing with grids in the internet. But I want to just take a little bit of time to explain to you what a grid does and what is the point of a grid. The reason why people use grids is just a point of reference. So when you are doing a drawing, you obviously break the drawing down into a bunch of little grids, and then you only have to worry about one little square at a time. So if I told you to draw a dot in the middle of your page, so you can do that. You can do that because you're going to look at the point of the paper, at the corner of the paper. You're going to look at the other corner. Then you're going to look at the other corner. Then you're going to look at the other corner. And then based on the halves of the paper and the corners of the paper, you are going to put the dot right in the center. That's what a grid allows you to do. A grid allows you to treat a drawing or a picture of something that is complex and use reference. These four corners that you see here on your page that allow you to put the dot in the middle, you'll be able to see four corners everywhere. And then you can say, okay, where does this line enter? Where does it go from here? You can put a dot in the square and you can say, where does this line enter? Where does this line go from here? And where does it go? So that is the whole premise of doing a grid. I will say something about the grid. It takes a long time to make one. And you have to be precise with it because in order for it to work correctly, all sides should be equal. Also, you do it really, really dark so that you can see it on the reference photo. So whatever photo you're using, you do a grid on that and you have to make sure that it is dark so that you can see it. But then when you move to your paper where your project is going to be on, you're going to make it very lightly, so that when you get the information on the paper, when you get the drawing on the paper, you can just erase those lines, and it'll be less distracting. It'll be more professional. You'll be All right. So here we have a picture of Iron Man. I'm just using this as an example so that you can see how we would start doing the grid on the picture that we want to copy, the picture that we want to draw. I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence here, but a grid is making a series of squares that are all equal on all sides. And the way that I do that is by going down the straight line of the paper, and with a ruler, I'm going down every half inch. I know that the first part got a little bit cut off, but every half inch, all the way down. When you want to, when you decide how big the page is going to be, then you multiply that by 2. So then I'm going to end up on my project paper with 1-inch squares instead of half-inch. If you want to blow it up 2 times, then it would be 1.5 inches or 3 inches. The bigger your squares, the bigger your picture can be. I'm doing the lines across, attaching those dots on each side of the paper so that I can get my squares. Now that I've done all the lines across, now I'm going to start measuring the top part of the paper. And remember, I'm drawing really hard because I want to be able to see these squares. This picture is gonna just end up in the recycling bin. There's no need to hide the fact that you're using a grid for it. So I'm already halfway done, every half inch, and then I go and I do the same thing at the bottom. Once I've done those at the bottom, I can just go in and start making my lines, my vertical lines, creating that grid. It's sped up a little bit because I don't think you have to see the way I make a grid. Remember, all the heavy lifting is up front. When you're doing your grid, that's where you're going to spend all your time. After your grid is done, then it's just pretty much connecting the dots. Fast forward a little bit here. Now I have my grid. I'm going to label the lines going down just so that I know, and also going across. So that's just so that I know what square is what. And if you guys can remember, earlier I talked about you can enter the square from like a quarter point, a half point. So I have it. Now I am doing the grid on my project paper. I got my Next Tech color green paper here. And I'm gonna make my grid a little bit bigger. I've decided that I want this picture to be twice as big. So I just multiply the half inch times 2 and I have 1-inch squares. Now I drew so light that you could barely see. So I brought up the paper to the screen so that you can see that I'm drawing very, very lightly. Here I'm doing the same thing, but that I did with the reference photo, but this is my project picture. I want to be very careful. I want to be neat, and I want to be light and graceful so that I can get rid of those lines, and no one knows how I managed to do such an accurate Iron Man. All right, now I'm labeling the same way I labeled on the reference photo, and I'm just matching up the squares. Looks like I'm gonna start with E. I see where each line enters, and then I strike a line right there. Then I move on to F. And I'm not looking at the whole picture. I'm not drawing Iron Man per se. I'm drawing one square at a time. And the way I can get the shape of his head is by seeing one square at a time. Where does the line enter my my square, and where it exits? Another way that that I found helpful is for you to outline your picture in a different color so that you can see, okay, this is the outline of the shape. And then you can use another color. Remember, that reference photo you're going to throw away anyway. So the interior lines, you can do a different color. And then that way you can focus. I've seen people fold their paper so that they're not looking at the whole picture. They're only looking at that little line. I've seen people zoom in. If your grid is digital, you can actually zoom in and only deal with that line, with that square, excuse me, that's in question. Here I am. It looks like I'm moving fast, but I'm actually taking my time with this drawing. I'll just have it sped up so that I don't bore you with it. And when you're reading the Chuck Close, about Chuck Close, you can actually go outside of Buzz and Google him, and you can see some hyper realistic works that he did, and it was all using a grid. Turns out that just because you use a grid doesn't mean that you don't have any skills. It just means that you're trying to get the right form, trying to copy the right things, and then all those textures, those are where your skills kick in. That shading, that the movement of your pencil when you get to hide your strokes or show your strokes, whatever it is that you're going for. That's where you show those skills. I messed up the eye. I erased it, and you can't see where I erased it. That's because in the beginning I'm drawing very lightly, extremely lightly, so that I can get rid of this whole grid and all of my mistakes without anyone ever noticing.